Leonardo DiCaprio's star power is undeniable, but ace director James Cameron has drowned his fans' theories yet again. James Cameron is in the news again for making a big splash with a watery film with Avatar 2: The Way of Water. But before he had blue people having ponytail in space, he had a pretty huge hit, Titanic. This director has done 9 feature films over his career, but it's undeniably the most iconic. Everyone has talked about Titanic's greatest moments and how hard-hitting and emotional the seminal film was. However, did you know that the starring man, Leonardo DiCaprio, didn't even want to be in the film? We're going to tell you how he got armbarred into the role by James Cameron, and why the director's positive Jack is 6,000 leagues under the sea when you watch the whole video. Cameron has directed 9 films, but the famous Leonardo has starred in more than 35. From the 90s street retelling of Romeo and Juliet to his award-winning survival story The Revenant, Leonardo delivers stunning performances to tug the heartstrings across the big screen. His best-known role remains, however, Jack Dawson from Titanic. But here's where it gets ironic. Leonardo DiCaprio actually thought the whole film was boring. James Cameron described himself as having to twist his arm to get Leonardo to sign on. Leonardo ultimately only signed on after the tenacious James Cameron convinced him it would be a challenging role, and the actor simply couldn't resist a good challenge. But after having to practically force Leonardo to sign on for the project, what did James Cameron do? Nearly fired him. That's right, all because he wouldn't read a few lines of dialogue for 5 minutes with Rose's actress Kate Winslet, who he was screen testing the same day. It turns out he'd been a little ambushed. Leonardo thought this was just a meeting. It must be nice to be a Leonardo DiCaprio. Work meetings for him are just getting to know movie stars he'll be smooching on screen. So it came as a swift kick in the ass to the famous actor's cushy standard operating procedure to be told he had to read. Leonardo said, "I don't read." And James Cameron said, "Well, see ya." Leonardo was shocked to learn he wasn't getting the job he had been cast, but not yet fully hired for. James Cameron broke it down like this. He busts his chops to make these films. He spends 2 years in post-production perfecting and refining them. And all that he wanted from Leonardo, to star as the leading man in his film and get paid a handsome fee, read for 5 minutes, with the prospective Rose to be certain they had good chemistry together. Meanwhile, Leonardo would go on to many more films rapidly and collect yet more large checks. It was all about matching Rose and Jack, but Leonardo had his head in Hollywood rather than aboard a sinking ship. This whole argument happened while the camera was set up and Kate was waiting in the other room, by the way. Talk about an awkward moment at work. But once the two men came to an understanding, their Hollywood egos and ids equally soothed. They managed to collaborate and produce something beautiful. Kate and Leonardo's screen chemistry is the stuff of film legend at this point. Another film legend is actually the fridge moment people have about Jack's death. Fridge brilliance is when you've just seen a movie and you're opening the fridge later and an idea hits you like a wave of cold air. That stirring revelation for most is Jack could have lived. There was clearly enough room for both of them on that door. James Cameron is big into sci-fi and number crunching, and decided to put the idea to rest. He claims he's scientifically determined it would be impossible for Jack and Rose to both live. He gave a recent interview with Post Media, where the infamously snarky director got to the point. He talked about this disaster film more like it was Buffy the Vampire Slayer, though. He said he had done a scientific study to drive a stake through the heart of the idea they both could have lived. Youch. A little type A there, aren't we, James? Really though, if people wouldn't shut up about a plot element they didn't like from a 1997 movie all the way into 2023, we'd all probably get a little pissy with the audience. So James Cameron, between trips to the bottom of the ocean in his submarine, put out a scientific hit on this fan theory. And the scientific community obliged. Using a thorough forensic analysis with an old chum of his, a hypothermia expert who reproduced the film's raft, they put two fake Kate and Leos in the water. So with two body doubles on a plank, they set about to see what would happen. They didn't leave them out to drown though. Their bodies were covered with little sensors. These sensor nodes detected their dampness and temperature. From there, they put on a series of grueling tests out of a Seaborn Survivor episode. The readings came back the same each time. No matter how they tried to stay on that plank, both of them were dying. Whether due to the elements or sinking the plank, they were goners. But beyond just the scientific element he has now run through to prove fan theories wrong, James Cameron felt strongly that the emotional core of his epic romance film required it. Remember how James made a modern adaptation of Romeo and Juliet, replacing swords with guns? It was pretty amazing to see Montagues and Capulets rolling around like 90s California gangsters. If you've never seen it before, we highly recommend it. But what's more important than how swank they looked is the emotional core of that story. A timeless Shakespearean epic. It has undoubted fan appeal and legend status for fans of dramatic media and romance alike. James Cameron sees himself on a level with the great playwrights like Shakespeare. And that's how it all comes back to a simple rule. One of them has to die. You see, he feels that love and sacrifice are intrinsically related. And beyond that, human mortality and willingness to give it up is the ultimate symbol of love. As made clear with the 3 daddy plots from Avatar: The Way of Water, it's clear he's on a love and family kick. We just hope he continues to pump out great films because of it, even if he has to break a few handsome and heroic eggs to do it. Titanic is definitely a movie more familiar to the older generations. Sorry to age you millennials, but it turns out 90s kids are called geriatric millennials now. If you remember the heyday of this film and you've been arguing about whether or not Jack could have lived this whole time, honestly, James Cameron has set you free. There's more movies to watch and more stories to enjoy. And hey, if you're that mad about it, why don't you create your own romance where both of them live happily ever after once the big boat crash is finished? Let this news inspire you, Jack drowning truthers. The truth has just set you free. We're settling on our own truth. And that's that this is a wrap for this video. Don't forget to drop a like on our door boogie board and subscribe to this sinking ship before James Cameron reveals Jack was really saved by a talking whale and taken to Pandora. I mean, hey, I'd pay to go see Avatar 3 in IMAX.